All right, everyone, grab your mining helmets. We are going deep into Return to Moria. That's right, the survival crafting game that throws you right into Tolkien's Mines of Moria.
Hmm.
You could think of this deep dive as our own little spelunking adventure through, well, those dark depths. Hopefully, though, a lot less Balrog action than the Fellowship had to deal with.
Yeah, definitely less Balrog, hopefully a lot more insightful analysis. We've got a ton of reviews and gameplay footage to dig through.
We do.
Some from professional critics, some from players, the ones who really get their hands dirty.
Oh, yeah.
We've got IGN, Mrs. Spielberg, Nerd of the Rings, even Sam in UK. He always gives, his honest opinion.
Some in UK, he never holds back.
No, he does not.
That's for sure. So basically, for everyone listening, we're going to figure out, is this game, is it just another one of those survival games with like a Tolkien-themed reskin?
Mm.
Or does Return to Moria really capture, I don't know, that like Middle-earth magic?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And, it's been out for almost a year now, so we're going to see how it's holding up.
Yeah. How's it aged? Exactly.
Let's start at the beginning, shall we?
Uh-huh.
So the game's set in the fourth age of Middle-earth.
Okay.
Now, for those of you who, maybe aren't super deep into the lore, this is a period that we just don't see that often in games.
Right.
It's after the War of the Ring.
Yeah.
It's this time of, well, rebuilding, forging a new path for Middle-earth. And guess who shows up to give us our mission?
I don't know who.
Gimli, son of Gloin. And, get this, he's voiced by John Rhys Davies.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty cool. Right off the bat, you get Gimli telling you to reclaim Moria.
Not every day you get that kind of invitation.
That's true. So tell me more about this fourth age setting. What's exciting about it for a game like this?
Well, it gives us a fresh perspective. Most games, they focus on those big battles and the heroes we all know. But this time we're seeing this world that's healing. It's dealing with all the consequences of those big events. And for the dwarves, that means reclaiming their ancestral home, rebuilding their lost kingdom.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about surviving. You're rebuilding a legacy.
Exactly.
That's a pretty compelling hook, I think.
Yeah.
But what about the actual gameplay? I mean, we know there's mining, crafting, all those like survival staples.
Yeah.
What makes Return to Moria stand out?
So it's got, it has the foundation of your classic survival game, but there are some interesting twists. One that really caught my eye is this mechanic where you sing for inspiration.
You sing for inspiration.
You sing for inspiration.
Okay.
And it's not just like a cute little gimmick either.
Oh.
In the game, when your dwarves sing, it actually boosts their abilities.
Really?
Yeah, and it ties into, Tolkien's love of songs and poetry and how important those were to dwarven culture.
So we're not just charming, it's strategic.
It is.
You're singing your way to victory.
You are.
I like that. I'm curious, how did different reviewers, how did they react to that?
Some reviewers, like Nerd of the Rings, they really loved this little detail, They saw it as like this core part of how you actually play the game.
Okay, yeah.
Others, well, they mentioned it more as just like a fun addition, not like a core thing.
I see.
It really seemed to depend on how each reviewer, approached the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some people, they want that hardcore, survival experience.
Right.
And others, they just appreciate like those thematic touches.
Exactly.
Speaking of like those little details, let's talk about base building.
Okay.
It's a big part of the game. But some reviewers, like Sawman UK, he found it a little limiting compared to something like Valheim. He even called it a chore at times.
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from. Valheim, it's known for that freeform building, you
Yeah.
kind of go crazy.
Right.
Return to Moria seems to be more structured. There are these preset campsites that offer, well, advantages. And it seems like these campsites, they become strategic locations, but, maybe at the cost of you having complete creative freedom.
So it sounds like the game is trying to balance giving you options while, also staying true to the setting. These campsites, are they just functional, or do they tie into the lore at all?
That's what's so fascinating about them. They're not just random spots.
Okay.
It seems like they're remnants of Moria's past, maybe old outposts or settlements, So when you build there, you get this sense of reclaiming something lost.
I see. So you're not just building a base, you're uncovering history.
Yeah, exactly.
That has a whole other, dimension to it. Okay, so you've got your base. But now what? You can't just sing and craft forever,
Of
right?
course not.
You got to deal with, with the denizens of Moria.
Oh, yeah. And this is where the reviews get really interesting.
Okay.
So Mr. Spielberg, he loved the combat. He found it challenging, especially later in the game. But then you have IGN, and they found it repetitive.
Hmm.
They thought the enemy AI was, pretty basic.
So one person's challenge is another person's slog, I guess?
You could say that.
What kind of challenge did Mrs. Spielberg enjoy? Like, was it just like being swarmed by enemies, or was there more to it?
He mentioned that, later on you start encountering tougher enemies,
Okay.
like drakes.
Drakes?
Yeah, those big flying, fire-breathing things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And to beat them, you have to actually strategize more.
Right.
You have to use the environment, manage your resources, and really rely on your party strengths.
So you can't just button mash your way through.
Nope.
Okay, so that brings up another point. Co-op play.
Yes.
How does that factor into the difficulty and, just the overall enjoyment? Because Nerd of the Rings, he found solo play like frustrating,
Yeah.
but he absolutely loved playing with others.
That seems to be a common theme, but here's where it gets tricky.
I mean, that
Well, Nerd of the Rings, he loved co-op. Sama and UK actually argued that a full party, it can make the game too easy.
too easy.
Imagine, 7 dwarves just steamrolling through Moria.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
It might be fun for some,
Yeah.
but, not for everyone.
Right.
It really comes down to your play style and who you're playing with, you
Yeah.
know? Do you want a coordinated challenge, or do you want, like, this chaotic dwarven party?
Yeah, coordinating 7 dwarves, that sounds like a challenge in and of itself.
It does.
So we've got engaging combat, depending on who you ask, and a co-op experience that could be both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
What else should we consider before we head deeper into Moria?
Well, we can't ignore the elephant in the mine, the thing that can make or break any game. Performance. And unfortunately, this is where Return to Moria seems to stumble a bit.
Okay, so back into the mines we go.
Hmm.
Before we got to those performance issues, you mentioned these preset campsites being a big part of the Return to Moria experience.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do those campsites actually, play into the gameplay loop?
You can kind of think of them like pre-built foundations,
Okay.
but they're strategically placed.
Yeah.
You can build a base almost anywhere.
Yeah.
But these campsites, they offer certain bonuses.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe there are, richer ore veins nearby or some natural defenses. It encourages you to think about where you settle, not just, slap down a house anywhere you want.
So it's nudging you toward these specific locations, but not forcing you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting how that ties back to that balance between, player freedom and a more curated experience. You're not, totally on rails, but the game definitely has some ideas about how you should approach things.
Exactly. And those preset campsites, they actually add to the narrative, too. They're not just, empty spots on the map. They're remnants of Moria's past. So, they echo with the history of the dwarves who were there before. It's like you're rediscovering these lost outposts.
I see.
Piecing together, what happened before, the orcs and goblins took over.
So there's a sense of discovery even in, where you choose to build.
Exactly.
You're not just surviving, you're uncovering secrets,
Yeah.
reclaiming a legacy. But let's be real, surviving in Moria, that means dealing with some pretty nasty creatures. What kind of enemies are we talking about here?
Oh, it's a full roster of, your classic Middle-earth baddies.
Okay.
We've got goblins, orcs, cave trolls, even those glowing mushrooms.
All right.
The bioluminescent ones that Mrs. Spielberg mentioned, they're poisonous.
Yeah.
It seems like the game throws a good variety at you, and each one kind of requires a different approach.
So it's not just hack and slash everything you see. I remember IGN, they were complaining about the AI being basic. But then Mrs. Spielberg, he actually enjoyed the challenge, especially as the game progressed. What changed as you went deeper?
Mrs. Spielberg, he highlighted how the enemy types got tougher.
Okay.
And more strategic as he delved deeper. He specifically mentioned the drakes.
The drakes.
Yeah, those powerful flying enemies. They forced him to rethink his tactics. He couldn't just rely on, brute force. He had to use the environment, manage his resources, and really leverage his party strengths.
So it's not just about, getting stronger gear. It's about using your brain, too.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder about the multiplayer aspect again. We talked about how like a full party could just steamroll through the content.
Right.
But what if those tougher enemies, what if they require like coordination? Could that make co-op even more vital later on?
Oh, absolutely. Think about coordinating attacks, using dwarves with different skills to support each other, Maybe even setting traps. A well-coordinated party, they could turn those challenging encounters into, a symphony of dwarven destruction.
Okay, I can already picture Salman UK narrating that symphony, with some choice dwarven curses.
Yeah.
But I see your point. It adds another layer to that co-op experience.
Yeah.
It's not just about having, more firepower. It's about strategy. It's about teamwork.
Yeah.
Now, before we lose our appetites thinking about, orcs and drakes, let's talk about food. Mr. Spielberg, he mentioned some pretty mouth-watering recipes.
He did.
So tell me, what's on the menu in Return to Moria?
Mrs. Spielberg seemed particularly fond of the snack system.
The snack system.
Yeah,
Okay.
where you prepare food to take on expeditions. It's not just about restoring health.
No.
It's about, planning and resource management. He was raving about this hearty dwarven stew.
A dwarven stew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, it gives you some pretty significant buffs.
Okay, now I'm actually getting hungry.
Yeah.
It's those little touches, that add to the immersion. You're not just like clicking buttons. You're thinking about, what your dwarves are eating, how they're staying warm by those roaring forges.
Right.
Speaking of which, how does the game handle like those crafting and community spaces?
Return to Moria, it seems to really nail that cozy, communal feeling of dwarven life. The forges, the campfires, they're not just for crafting.
Okay.
They're social hubs
Right.
where you gather, share stories, plan your next, expedition. It reinforces the idea that you're building a community, not just a base.
It's like you're creating a home, a place to belong.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, making a home, how much customization is there? Can you really deck out your dwarven halls?
Mrs. Spielberg, he spent a surprising amount of time gushing about the decorating options. You can craft furniture, hang banners, even customize your dwarf's personal quarters.
Yeah. I love that. It's like those finishing touches, make a house a home.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those potential drawbacks. Performance issues aside, IGN, they brought up another concern. Limited mining areas. They said you can only dig through predetermined tunnels.
Yeah.
Which sounds a little restrictive.
It is a valid point, and it kind of speaks to, a broader design choice. Like games like Minecraft,
Yeah.
they give you this whole world to just sculpt, right?
Yeah.
You're not just mining, you're terraforming.
Right.
Return to Moria seems to prioritize a more guided experience. You're exploring, this existing network of Moria, uncovering its secrets, but you're not reshaping, the entire mountain.
So it's like the difference between exploring a vast, like uncharted cave system
Right.
versus excavating a lost city.
Did
Both have their appeal, but they offer different types of freedom.
They do.
Return to Moria is about discovering what's already there, not necessarily creating something totally new.
Precisely. And that design choice also affects, the overall atmosphere of the game.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of atmosphere, did any of the reviewers talk about how the game captures that Tolkien-esque feeling?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Spielberg, he used the word authentic to describe it.
Authentic, okay.
And I think that's spot on. He talked about how the environments, the sound design, even the lighting, it all works together to create, this truly immersive experience.
So it's not just about looking like Middle Earth. It's about feeling like it.
Yeah, from the, echoing halls to the eerie glow of those bioluminescent mushrooms. It seems like the game really transports you right into Tolkien's world.
And let's not forget the music.
Oh yeah, the music.
Nerd of the Rings. He couldn't stop praising the soundtrack. He said it perfectly captured the mood and the grandeur of Moria.
Yeah.
It added, this whole other layer of depth to the experience.
Music can really make or break, a game's atmosphere.
It can.
And it seems like Return to Moria uses it, brilliantly. It's not just background noise. It's part of the storytelling. It enhances those moments of awe and wonder as you delve deeper into the mines.
And I bet those dwarven work songs, they add to that feeling too.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Imagine your party chanting as you mine, adding to the camaraderie,
Yeah.
and the overall sense of of dwarvenness. It's those little details that can really elevate a game from good to great.
It's those details that turn, a game into an experience.
Exactly.
But enough gushing about atmosphere for now.
Okay.
We have to talk about the big question. Does Return to Moria, does it actually live up to the hype, despite those potential performance hiccups?
So we've talked about the good, the bad, and the potentially buggy. But like stepping back, what really makes Return to Moria unique? In this crowded world of survival crafting games.
Well, I mean, it has a lot going for it, but I think one thing that really sets it apart is the setting. We're
Yeah.
used to seeing Middle Earth during the War of the Ring, right? All
Yeah.
those epic battles, the larger than life heroes. But the Fourth Age, I mean, it's uncharted territory,
Yeah.
at least in games.
So we're seeing a different side of Middle Earth.
We are.
It's not about, saving the world this time.
Right.
It's about rebuilding it, picking up the pieces. And who better to do that than the dwarves? I mean, they were practically born for the,
Yeah.
this survival crafting genre.
Right. It's like this genre was made for them. Mining, crafting, building, it's in their blood. And there's something deeply satisfying, about digging deep into the earth, carving out a new home from the rock and stone. I think it taps into this primal instinct, that desire to create, to shape the world around us.
And Return to Moria gives you that opportunity.
It does.
Yeah.
In this world we all know and love. But Nerd of the Rings, he brought up an interesting point. He said that the game's visual style, he said it felt fresh, like not just a rehash of the Peter Jackson films. But what did he mean by that?
Well, I mean, the films, they've undoubtedly had a massive impact on how we all picture Middle Earth. But Return to Moria, it seems to be taking its own approach. It's not just trying to recreate what we've already seen. It's
Right.
got this more stylized look, almost painterly. It captures the grandeur and the darkness of Moria, but in a new way.
So it's breathing new life into this familiar world,
Yeah.
showing us that there's always more to explore, more to discover, even in a place as iconic as Moria.
Exactly. And that sense of discovery, I think, is what makes this game so compelling. But, we can't ignore those performance concerns, the ones that IGN raised. They really seem to hamper their enjoyment.
It's a shame, because it sounds like they really wanted to love the game.
They did.
It's like finding this incredible treasure chest, only to find out that it's got like a rusty hinge.
But, rusty hinges can be fixed. The developers they've already released several patches since launch.
Okay, yeah.
And they've been very active in the community, listening to feedback. So there's a good chance that those performance issues will be, ironed out over time.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Because, even with those flaws, it's clear that Return to Moria, it was made with a lot of love and care.
Yeah.
The developers, they really seem to get Tolkien's world, and they've poured that passion into every detail. From the lore to the music to those little dwarven touches.
It's more than just a game, It's a celebration of Tolkien's world.
Yeah.
It's a love letter to Middle Earth, and it's an invitation to experience Moria in a way that we never have before.
And that's what makes it so special. You're not just surviving in a hostile world. You're reconnecting with a lost heritage, rebuilding what was broken, and forging a new path for the dwarves in this Fourth Age. It's a story of resilience, of community, and of that enduring spirit of Middle Earth.
It's a story that any Tolkien fan or anyone who loves, a good crafting adventure, it's something they should experience for themselves.
Well, after this deep dive, I'm ready to grab a pickaxe and start digging, or maybe just belt out a good dwarven drinking song. Either way, I think Moria is calling.
And who knows what the future holds. Several reviewers, they hinted at possible expansions. Maybe even venturing into Goblin Town or exploring Erebor.
Wow.
The possibilities they're pretty exciting.
Imagine that, a whole dwarven saga.
Yeah.
Unfolding across Middle Earth. This could be just the beginning of a much grander adventure. So, listener, if you're looking for a unique and an immersive experience, one that lets you delve into the heart of Tolkien's world and build something truly special, Return to Moria might just be the game for you. Till next time, happy mining.